and welcome to Hawkeye Traders. My name is Randy Lindsay. I'm host of today's live interactive session. I am here to teach you and show you how to use Hawkeye on the live edge of the market. Today's presentation is dedicated to the TradingView platform. I will show you all the Hawkeye tools on the TradingView application and platform, how it's used, set up, and show you how they're actually applied in the markets. Before we get started, I want to make sure everyone here knows we are here for educational purposes only, that Hawkeye Traders is not an investment advisory service. We're not registered, so we cannot tell you whether to buy or sell anything. We can't give you any trading advice whatsoever. But what we can do is teach you and train you how to use these remarkable tools to build a trading plan that can be both consistently profitable and successful. Make sure you understand and know that there is a large amount of risk involved in trading in these markets. You must understand the risk and be willing to accept them in order to trade in futures, stocks, forex, cryptocurrencies, options, or equities. Make sure that you use common sense when trading in these markets. Past performance is not indicative of any future results, so make sure that you get advice from a competent financial advisor before you start investing your money in these markets. As I alluded to earlier, there's a large amount of reward potential in the markets. There's also a large amount of risk. So please don't trade with money that you cannot afford to lose. Make sure you first trade and execute your plan in a simulated account or paper trading account first before you actually start using live money. Okay, here we go. All right, TradingView. It's an awesome new platform. It is totally web-based. So that means that it's all the data and information is run on cloud servers. So you can use these tools and the entire platform on any device, any mobile device, your iPhone, your iPad, your Droid, any of the tools that you are familiar with, even your laptop, in different locations. It's my primary tool of choice if I'm traveling, because that way I don't have to worry about taking my platform with me wherever I go. Normally I would usually take a laptop or something, but now I can just take whatever tool is convenient, and I have all of my Hawkeye tools at my disposal, and I can do very good follow-up and analysis using that. All right, so to get started, I just want to make sure you should go through the basics of learning and using Hawkeye on TradingView. Overall, a very quick analysis to see what we're looking at. You can see that I've got the Hawkeye trend and stops loaded on a NASDAQ daily chart. You can see I have Hawkeye volume and heat map right here showing us the build of buying pressure or selling pressure and the overall strength of our trend. I also have a Hawkeye roadkill loaded right here. I have two instances of it. Here is one and here's another one. And I have a higher time frame heat map here. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at longer time frame alignment of the current trend. So when I get one of these little dots here, that tells me that the alignment of my longer time frame is good on my shorter time frame. So what I'm going to be doing is showing you how to do that, how to look at volume, how volume tells you the directional intent of the market, when it says that there are sellers coming in, when it says there are buyers coming in. And we'll go through all that. But initially, I want to show you the application of the tools on the TradingView platform itself. So let me go over to a blank screen here and show you. This is a blank TradingView chart. Of course, you can load any of the tools on here that you have access to. The indicator list comes up, and you can see there are a lot of indicators available for you to choose from. If you are a Hawkeye user, then you will find all of your Hawkeye tools under the invite only script section. And within there, you can see a list of all of the Hawkeye software that you have available. Okay. So what I want to first do is I want to pull up the Hawkeye volume. You've got the volume, quite a few volume tools here available. What I want to see is my Hawkeye Volume Pack 1. Hawkeye Volume Pack 1 is a collection of 3 of the indicators: Hawkeye Volume Radar, and Hawkeye Volume Paint Bar. All three of those indicators are lumped into one indicator. That way, if you're using a free TradingView account, you're not going to be impacted by the limit of only loading 3 indicators. So if you use the volume pack 1 indicator, that will give you all 3 of those indicators in one, and then you're free to load 2 additional indicators if you like. So I'll go ahead and load this one right here. I just do a single click and it will automatically start compiling and loading onto my chart. You can see it in the background. Let me go ahead and close this off. And there we go. So it comes back in. You can see that the default colors for the neutral, which I would normally have a gray or white, comes in as black. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to change that. So by looking at the indicator here, I can click on the settings or format button, and that allows me to go in and set the neutral colors for those. Volume paint bar, I want it to be, click that one there, volume, same one, and 0. So those are the volume errors, and those are all good. So right now that looks like a good setup. Defaults, save as default. That's going to be my new default settings. I click OK. So when I load a new volume pack 1, it's going to come in automatically with those pre-configured settings. So I've got it set up to look at and identify that. So here I've got Hawkeye volume paint bar coloring the volume bars. And let me go ahead and turn this off so you can see what the original bar colors are. This is what I refer to as if the close is less than the open, then it will paint it red. If the close is greater than the open, it will paint it green. So this basically will give you a direction of what the price is doing. But when you overlay volume on top of that, then it gives you a completely different picture. Okay, so you can see where price is starting to extend up and where volume is starting to show pressure to the downside, or when you can start to see these huge volume up thrusts as well. So it's nice to be able to see that on your chart. So looking at volume paint bar, it allows you to see what the color of the volume is directly on the bar itself. Of course, Hawkeye volume is the same. Hawkeye volume shows you the color of the volume pressure that's coming in. So you can see coming into this point right here, you've got a large build of buying pressure and the responsive price action from that. Here you can see red volume is good and it's coming in pretty strong, but notice the magnitude of the green volume that came in at this point. Notice how the red volume paled by comparison, and then as that volume started to drop, notice that the magnitude of the volume also started to drop. So this is referred to as price action failure, where you've got declining volume on declining price. You don't want to see volume going down as price is going down. This is actually a very bullish indication. And as you can see, once it failed and we started to get ultra low volume, all the sellers dried up. And you cannot continue to go down in price with ultra low volume, which is shown by your volume radar, these 2 light blue dots right there. Okay, so neutral ultra low volume is telling you there are no more sellers in this market. Again, another bullish indication that price wants to go up. Then when you start to see buyers come into the market, you start to see price responding favorably, and now you're starting to see an increase of buying volume as price is increasing. Again, very good bullish information. So those are that's the information you want to glean from Hawkeye volume. It's our foundational tool. I would never trade without it, and understanding the relationship between volume and price is the key to your trading success. And if you don't learn it, then I think you're going to continue to have a difficult time trading in these markets. Larry, yes, this is being recorded and it will be made available on Hawkeye Traders website following today's presentation. Yes. Good morning, Marcel. Yeah, a TradingView. I don't think TradingView has tick chart capability. As a matter of fact, you do have some range bars, but tick charts are not in the setups for TradingView. Right now, Tomahawk is not available on TradingView. No, it is not. Hovig wants to know how we can get the dots on the volume. All I do is just load it onto that chart. So I already have this pre-configured as volume pack 1, but if you wanted to load it separately, all you need to do is just drag and drop it onto that particular pane. So if I were to pull up my indicator list again, if I were to go down and load Hawkeye volume separately, and if I load Hawkeye volume radar separately, let me wait for the volume to load. It's still compiling. There it is. And now load up the Hawkeye volume radar, and it will come in as a separate indicator. See that? Okay. Now within this, you can click and move it, and drop it, and see. Notice it came back on top of the chart that I had right here just by dragging it, and you can take that and move it down anywhere on there that you like. Oh yeah, I wanted to keep that. Okay, so there you got the dots there. I could almost, oh, there we go. I'll figure it out one of these days, but I got it on there, so that's 50% of the way there. So let me go ahead and get rid of that and that. We'll get back to what we're doing here. Yeah, Jerry, I'll take a look at the dollar CAD here in just a minute. I'll go ahead and change this while we're there. And then we'll look at this while we're doing it. This is an hourly chart, so I'm looking at a 1 hour identity of that. I do have several other charts set up. So right here, I've got my forex. I can see some real strength coming into the Canadian. The dollar is starting to be weak, so you'd be looking for potential long. So I'll let this start loading for the dollar Canadian, and then I'll go back over to this presentation here. Okay. All right. So any questions on volume before we move on? Absolutely, Les. Yeah, you can contact me on Skype afterwards, and I'll be glad to discuss whatever you want with. Okay. All right. So from volume, the next thing we want to look at then is our Hawkeye trend. All right. So let's find our Hawkeye trend and stops right there. Click on the Hawkeye trend and stops. You can see it's attempting to load. It's compiling, and once it's done, it'll be loaded onto my chart. The Hawkeye trend and stops coupled with our volume gives us trend entry and confirmation of an existing trend. Here we go. So there are three different indications on the indicator. A red trend dot identifies the conditions necessary for it to be in a downtrend. When you see red trend dots, you will also see a red automatic trailing stop level. You can see that these stops are color coded the same color as the trend dots, and it identifies the condition is met for a downtrend. Now, it doesn't have to be a red trend dot for it to be in a downtrend. Those are the conditions that we need for trend entry. Sometimes, as you can see here on the green trend, the trend can be going up, and notice the green stops on the bottom, but the trend dots are white. So that means it is a neutral uptrend, but the trend has not become strong enough for us to change it to a green. And it wasn't until a little bit later that the trend actually started to change. Even though the stops change, that just means that the downtrend is done, but that an uptrend has started. It is congested, but we're waiting for it to confirm an uptrend color. Okay, so the trend is a very important tool. So green is up and red is down. White is neutral or congestion. So anytime you see the white, you know that the trend has gone flat and need to be a little bit leery or cautious. Okay. Once I get the next indicator loaded, then we'll have the basic information that we need in order to follow Hawkeye's three-step entry exit method. So let me go ahead and pull my indicator up. Well, first, before I do that, let me go ahead and format this and show you inputs that are needed. The inputs for the trend stops indicator are the trend speed. Here you can set the speed to aggressive, normal, or conservative. These are three different speeds that adjust the parameters within the indicator that allow it to change the location where the trend actually changes color. So if a conservative setting is on, then the value of that price has to go in order to trigger a red trend is larger. So the price has to really go pretty far before it confirms a trend. An aggressive mode is the price does not have to move very far in order to get this red trend dot to be visible. It might have triggered on this push right here, or the red trend might have triggered on this push right here. So it's a much more aggressive and will get you into a trade a little bit quicker, 1, 2, up to 5 trend dots earlier. And normal is somewhere in between aggressive and conservative. I always like to keep my trend speed set at conservative because I do not like to be early to the party. I want to be in the party once it's confirmed, and a conservative value is my speed of choice. Pull in stop and pull in count and pull in to are settings that allow you to change how aggressively the trend changes and adjusts the automatic trailing stop. So the stops are automatically set once the trend is identified. But if you want to, after a certain period of time, pull your stops in from a conservative level to an aggressive level, then this is the setting. And here you can see a really good example of that, where the Hawkeye stops are located at a conservative distance away from price, and that holds it in. But once the price starts to become aggressive at a certain point, notice how quickly the stops jump down and start following price. That's because after 15 price bars, the pull-in goes aggressive. So you can turn this on, and then you can see where the 15 bar change occurs. As you can see how the price is all changed and adjusted. And if I were to go back in and set that back again to off, okay, the stops went back to their previous values. Okay, so it's a great way to lock in additional profit if you're uncomfortable with where your current targets for exiting are. Of course, you can always change the colors if you do not like red and green. If you like blue and magenta, that's great too. You can always change the color of those dots to suit your particular trading style. All right, so let me load the third indicator, which is the Hawkeye heat map. One click is all you need. The heat map loads onto your chart and shows you the current strength of a trend. What the heat map actually does is it gives you a combination of the conservative, normal, and aggressive trend speeds for any given trend. And when all three of those trend speed settings are in agreement, you'll get bright colors. So if you have conservative trend, normal, and aggressive all saying the trend dot should be red, then you'll get a bright red color. It'll be dark red if two of those are in agreement but one is out. So here you can see that there's probably a disagreement on the direction of the trend. There are two that agree, but one doesn't agree, but they're down. So that means that you've got a weak downtrend. Here's a dark green, and here's another dark green. That means that two of the indicators agree to the upside, but one does not, and so forth. So you can see that any two or one that agree in a direction will give you a dark color, one or the two, but if they all three agree, then you will have a bright color. So that gives you a very good measure based upon price and volume of the momentum or strength of that particular trend. All right, as I said earlier, this is the minimum tool set necessary to follow our three-step entry-exit method. Because what you would want to do is you'd want to have the trend, volume, and heat map loaded onto three different time frame charts. The three time frames should be time frames that are harmonic by nature. So they should be integer multiples of the fastest time frame that you're using. So if I wanted to set this up as a 15, 30, 60, then I would set this first chart to a 15-minute chart, and I would load two other charts that would give me a 30 and 45. So very quickly, let's load that up and set this up so that I have three charts set up. This first chart will be my fastest chart, so I will set it up to a 15-minute. So I'll have the Hawkeye trend, volume, and heat map loaded onto that chart. And the secondary chart, since it duplicated the current chart, it went ahead and duplicated everything on my other chart. So this is a great time saver for me and automatically loaded the settings that I already had on this chart. The second chart I'm going to set up as a 30-minute. And then the last one, I'll keep it as an hour. So that way I can currently see what a 15-minute, what a 30-minute, and a 60-minute time frame setup is. So when I have a red trend dot on my 15-minute chart, you can see how the alignment cursors are here. I have red trend dot. If I scroll down here, I have red volume, and I have a bright red heat map. That's step number one. I need to have a single time frame confirmation. Step number two, I need to look at my secondary time frame. And on that second time frame, you can see right over here, on that second time frame, on that first trend dot, I need to see that my heat map is dark. See that dark red? And that the volume is red. So well, volume has been red for like 4 bars already, but the heat map didn't turn dark until right about there. So right there is the second time frame confirmation. And the third time frame, which is the 60-minute down here, I need to see at that point, is the volume red? And you can see, boom, volume has been red for 2 hours already. So that confirms that all three time frames are in agreement and that the short-term direction of this dollar Canadian is going to be to the downside. Okay, so On TradingView, it's very easy to see that. The cursor alignment is already set up and loaded onto each of the charts, so you can see that very easily. All right, so what we've done with Hawkeye is that we've loaded and given you 2 additional tools that help you to see that on a single chart. I like to have the 3 charts set up because what it does is enables me to see the current trend condition. So the 6 ways the market moves, if you're familiar with our teachings on that, then this tells me very quickly where I am in the market and whether I want to follow that or not. And that's the whole idea behind it. So following the 6 ways. But you can load them all onto a single chart. So what I'm going to do is pull my indicators up and I'm going to find my Hawkeye Roadkill. What the Roadkill does, let me load just one instance onto this chart. Oh, it's loading onto that chart. I didn't want that one. I wanted it on this one right here. Roadkill. Once it compiles, see right now it's currently compiling. Once it compiles, it'll display down here on the bottom, new pane, right there, Hawkeye Roadkill. And it's loading the data for it. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the roadkill on this chart because I don't need it. And the first thing I'm going to do with my new roadkill is I'm going to format it and put it on a time frame that's harmonic to the current time frame. Now, 60 minutes is the current setting for that. That's harmonic. It's 4 time frames of the 15, but I want this one to be 2. So I'm going to format that. And right now I currently have it set to 60, but I want it to be set to 30. So this will be a 30-minute trend and a 30-minute volume that I'm showing on my 15-minute chart. You can see there are 2 settings, fast and slow trend speeds. These are the same trend speed settings that we talked about earlier. The fast speed needs to be the same as the fast speed on the chart that the roadkill is applied to. So if you have this set to conservative right here, then this needs to be conservative. The slow trend speed is the trend speed of the 30-minute chart that you're going to compare the 15-minute to. So in this case, the slow time frame can be any 3, aggressive, conservative, normal. You can pick any one that you like. Again, I like to keep it at conservative. 30 minutes, and then these are just the display values. If I want to see the trend dots right here, this right here will turn it on or off. If I want to see a trend entry or a trend roadkill, then these I turn those on or off. If I want to see volume and then see the volume triggers, those will also turn them on and off. There are 4 different signals that are given by the roadkill. The trend entry, that shows you at the very first time when the second time frame trend comes into alignment with the first time frame trend. The trend roadkill is a signal that shows you when the first time frame trend goes out of trend and then back into trend while the second time frame continues a trend direction. Right here there are no conditions that meet that because you can see the second time frame went out of trend also. So that right now there are no trend roadkills. The volume signals, a volume roadkill occurs when you have a change in the volume of your second time frame that aligns with the volume in your first time frame. And a aggressive roadkill is when the current time frame cycles in and out relative to a fixed volume on the longer time frame. So those are the 4 conditions that you're looking at. Okay. So what this does essentially replicates the 30-minute trend and volume on my 15-minute chart. So TJ wants to know what time frames are harmonic. Any integer multiple of your fast time frame. So 15 times 2 is 30. 15 times 3, 45. 15 times 4, 60. So you can see those are all integer multiples. Also, what I play off of the harmonics is that if I doubled my fast time frame for my second time frame, if I double my second time frame, that gives me my third time frame. So a 15 times 2 is a 30. A 30 times 2 is a 60. So that also is harmonic. And also note that 60 is 4 times 15. So they're all integer multiples and harmonic to each other. Okay. Second thing I need to do here is load my heat map HT. You'll notice under your indicators that you've got the higher time frame heat map right here, heat map HT. As opposed to the heat map just loads onto the current chart at the current time frame. But the heat map HT, which comes with the roadkill, allows you to see the heat map of any higher time frame chart. And it loads it onto your 15-minute time frame chart. So right now it's currently loaded as a 60. So if I click the Format button, you can see the resolution is something I can predict. I want it to be from my 30-minute. That's this one right here. So I'll click OK. Because what I want to be able to see is I want to see at this point if volume aligns and if my heat map is dark. That's all I want to see. Alignment of volume and dark heat map. And you can see I get that right there. Dark heat map, volume, 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 red trend dot. So right there is the very first point that so far my 15 and 30-minute time frames have aligned. The last step is let's look at the volume of our 60-minute time frame. So let's go back to our indicator list. Let's go back and load a second instance of the Hawkeye Roadkill. And it will load up just right up under here. Once I get them all loaded, then I'll pretty it up and make it look nice. It looks like it's a lot of indicators on your screen, but they all work together so beautifully that it seems like just a single setup. Once you get used to and understand the tools, then all you have to do is just simply look at the alignment and identify what volume is trying to tell you, and it helps you to identify and look at those trades. As they set up. All right, so that one loaded as a 60, and that's good. That's because that's exactly what I want it to be, 60. So I'm going to go ahead and push that down a little bit and push this down just a little bit. Now give me a little bit more space for my chart and a little less for the indicators. All I need to do is be able to see those. Okay, so what you're seeing now, and let me turn the indicator displays off here, is that I am seeing the roadkill from on a 15-minute chart aligned with my 30-minute and 60-minute setups. Okay. If you were to format that indicator, then you can see that the resolution is set to 60 minutes and they are conservative and my default values are all displayed. I really don't need to see the trend, so I'm going to turn off the trend. I'm also going to turn off any trend alignment signals. All I'm concerned with on my third time frame is volume. And of course I can change the colors of any of my inputs if I want to. And let me see here, one other thing I wanted to see. Trend volume there. Okay. All right, so now I'm looking at is just volume. So when I see the alignment occur, I need to see down at this point, see volume is already turned on the 60-minute way back here. So did it on the 30, but all we needed to see then, once this came in line, was a darkening of our heat map here. So right there would be the earliest place we could look at entering once we see that. Now, of course, you were already ready for that because you saw volume starting to come in at that point. And, you know, if you've been in my class very often, then you know that looking at this location, that volume is sitting here telling you that that direction is not going to continue. That volume is identifying a downward trend in direction, and you want to look at that weakness that's starting to come in. Now, this is based on 15 minutes. So we can see that the overall direction of our 60-minute trend, let me turn that off. So if we were to expand this 60-minute chart, you can see the overall direction of this 60-minute is down. Yeah. And is broken that downtrend right here, but it's still creating lower highs and lower lows. And until this previous lower high is broken, it will continue to stay in that lower high, lower low trend setup. And volume was showing us from this consolidation and setup that the downward direction and the pressure that's coming into it right now is still very strong. And I have not seen any real indication that buyers are strongly coming back into this market, because I can still see that sellers are firmly in control here. Okay, so this is simple corrective move, but we would be wanting to get back onto the down move once it begins to resume. So the chart, the main chart that we are interested in, we now have everything that we need to see all lined up in one place. And so we can trade directly off of our fastest time frame, knowing that it's going to give us everything that we need to know in order to start trading off of that chart. So it just simplifies everything. Are there any questions so far? I've walked you through the basic steps of not only identifying the tool, but loading it and modifying it so that it fits within your parameter. So once you see that and have that set up, then you can apply it to your charts. And if anyone is here that's not using the TradingView platform, if you're on MetaTrader 4, TradingView, TradeStation, or NinjaTrader, all these same tools can be set up exactly like this on those platforms. The setting parameters themselves would be a little different. How you edit the indicator would be a little different. So there's some small nuances that you would learn, but the general application and how to use these tools is platform independent. You're still going to be looking for a trend alignment with multiple time frame alignment colors. Green for long, red for short. And of course, as Marcel pointed out earlier, the Tomahawk tools are color coded to the pair that you're actually trading. So you don't have that ability on TradingView, but on NinjaTrader, TradeStation, or MetaTrader 4, you do have the color-coded identification of the tools. So the trend, the volume, the heat map, and so forth are all going to be color-coded along with the scanner to identify the pair that you're trading and pair strength, whether you have dollar strength or Canadian strength. Here you just see green and red. So if you see red, well, you know that the primary is the US dollar. So anytime you see red, you've got Canadian strength and dollar weakness. Using Tomahawk, it becomes just night and day. You see the color is going to be yellow. You know that the Canadian is the strong pair on that suit. In the uptrends, you know that the US dollar is going to be colored cyan, so you know that the strength is coming from dollars. Okay, it's a lot easier to see that and to identify those. There are other questions with regards to the basic setup to follow the three-step method. Okay. If you have any questions about that, then if you go into Hawkeye's membership area, you can download the document, the PDF that goes over all the rules for our three-step entry-exit method. You can also download any of the video teachings that go along with that. Today's presentation will be a really good refresher for those who've already gone through it. And if you want more detailed instructions than that, then I recommend that you come to our live Hawkeye training seminar. That's going to be in April. So if you look at our most recent newsletter and the one that's going to be coming out tomorrow, then look for information about the live Hawkeye seminar that's located in Charlotte, North Carolina, April the 7th through the 9th. 3 full days of content-rich demonstrations and teaching where we can meet each other, we can have meals together, and we can sit down face to face and share all the information that we've got pertaining to Hawkeye and the tools. Okay, very good. All right, some additional tools that we do have. You can see that there are templates here, so you can load any of the templates that you have set up. So I have set up a few of them. Unfortunately, templates are not transferable on TradingView. We tried to do that, but we couldn't. So I have saved some templates. Once I have a chart like this one set up, it's a template with 2 roadkills, then you can see I have a trend and stops heat map volume pack 1 with 2 roadkills, and this is set up on a daily chart and so forth. So you can see I have any of these that I can simply apply to a chart if I need to very quickly set up and use them. Okay. So this is the basics for trading. Now, if you're using any of the other tools, then let me go over there and start looking at those. You can see I have a 5, 15, 30 minute setup here, same as what I had. But this one is looking at equities. This is Microsoft on a 5-minute chart where I'm looking at the intraday trend. I'm looking at the trend, volume and heat map, and multiple time frame alignment. Here is more forex pairs. This is a 5, 15, 30, and 60-minute setup. I don't need all 4 time frames. However, if I want to shift between trading a 5, 15, 30 or a 15, 30, 60, then I've got them all set up and it's ready to go. I have 2 Fat Men loaded, a 30-minute Fat Man right here and a 60-minute Fat Man right here. So this will give me multiple time frame alignment of my Fat Man direction. It will also help me to see any other time frames that I might be looking at specific to that. So a 45 minutes specifically, or I can even load that if I needed to. What the Fat Man is a tool that allows me to see, it's a powerful tool that allows me to see the current strength of individual currencies. So right now I can see that on a 30-minute time frame, the Australian and New Zealand are the 2 strongest pairs, and that the yen dollar are the 2 weakest pairs. On an hourly chart, I can see that the British pound is the strongest. And then I've got a dead tie for second with the yen dollar euro. But I can see strength is building in that Australian, Canadian, and New Zealand. And that same strength is also here, but that strength is now starting to roll over of those 3, and the weakness of these are starting to be shown. But on the 30-minute, you can see that weakness is already very evident and going. So this is a really good indication for potential setup trades. So if you time it properly, and if you look at a setup on the fat man, which can act as a leading indication of direction, then we would be looking for an overbought Canadian or an overbought pound, overbought yen versus an oversold Australian or an oversold New Zealand. And so looking at those coming back up and building with strength versus these that are dropping with weakness, those give us really good setups that we could look for to see when our trend and volume alignment occurs. Okay. Any questions? It was at this point that volume was starting to show us that the trend in the dollar Canadian was starting to go weak. But if we look over here on the 30-minute fat man, we could see at this point we saw that the Canadian was extremely oversold and that the US dollar was already overbought and starting to trend in weakness. Okay, so at this point we could already see that the dollar was starting to trend with weakness right there, and that the Canadian was already starting to base. So at this point, when we start to see that strength build and this direction going down, we would be waiting for and looking for the chart to tell us where a good short entry would be. And this came in about 05:30 this morning, 6 o'clock. So if we go over to our 5-minute right at that same time, you can see that at this point we're looking for shorts. Well, you can see we're already currently in a long, so we're not going to be taking trades until we see right here. Volume is starting to tell us that the short's starting to come back in, and it was right here that we started to get some confirmed entries for a short entry on that. Because volume, trend, momentum, everything was already starting to align to give you that trade. And that trade started to trade all the way to right here when you started to see the brakes come on and that you started to see buyers coming in this market. Right, so once you start to see these buyers come in the market, notice that price just went flat at that point. Now you're seeing a battle. You're starting to see accumulation, distribution going on, buying and selling and buying and selling, going back and forth in a trading range. But until the previous high is broken, you're still in a downtrend, and that's what you'd be watching for. You're still seeing a build of strength in the Canadian. You're still seeing a loss of strength or a weakening of the US dollar. And on the longer time, you're seeing that same exact trend again. So this could just be a very short-term correction building up for the continuation of that longer term trend, because we see on the 15-minute we got the same indication, the 30-minute, even on the 60-minute, the same indication that this is in a downtrend. So we would be looking for that price to potentially take us back down at least to these stop levels here and go and so forth. So the fat man's the one that told us of this several hours ahead of time, and we were starting to take advantage of that setup. Okay, so the fat man is an ideal tool for that. Questions? How does it work to use Hawkeye on TradingView if you already have a different platform? It doesn't, because you already have it on a different platform. But if you already have a license to use Hawkeye on a different platform and you want to use Hawkeye on TradingView, then you do have to set up or get a separate license. David, if you do have any issues with your current software, David, you say you're using NinjaTrader 8 alerts questions, then send an email to support@hawkeyetraders.com, and they'll be more than glad to help you uh, solve that issue. Thank you. On the equity side of the house, we have another tool which is called the Hawkeye Fat Boy. Very similar to the Fat Man. Here's the Fat Man here. Very similar to the Fat Man. The Fat Boy shows you relative strength and weakness of the 6 pairs that you have loaded on it. So if I were to identify this and pull up the indicator, then you can see that I've got the style. Basically, I can define the colors of each individual line, but the inputs is the important part. What I'm looking at is 6 different symbols that I have preloaded onto this. In this case, I'm looking at the S&P, the NASDAQ, gold, the Dow, the Russell, and crude oil. And I have them color coded accordingly. And so I'm looking at the relative strength or weakness of each of these futures elements on a single chart. So that's what the Fat Boy does. The Fat Boy is a tool, much like the Fat Man, that shows a relative strength or weakness of individuals. So right now you can see that the Dow is the weakest of all of the pairs. Of all of the current futures markets. You've got the NASDAQ, and you've got the Russell, and then the S&P. And how tightly correlated these markets are is shown by how close they are to each other. Right now you can see the closeness of these markets are showing you that they are highly correlated. The Dow is just showing it's kind of weak and it's kind of getting beat up. Here they were starting to come into agreement, but right here at the market open, there was a big push up of strength in all the markets except the Dow. The Dow was just kind of meandering around, and all the other markets came right back down into the weakness that the Dow was already showing. So it looks like the Dow is the one that's starting to lead most of the markets in the futures market today. And you can see down here on my KISS, you can see that the KISS is an indicator that identifies the condition of advancing issues or declining issues in the market. So when I see the declining issues rising with strength and going beyond our very first purple level here, then that tells me I am in a downtrend condition. I want to be shorting this market. I don't want to be long in this market. And if this continues to stay that way through the morning, then this tells me if I'm taking any longs at all, then those longs need to be short-lived. I need to take my profits quickly. But if I'm trading shorts, then I can stick with those trends and hold them. And that's what the KISS tells me. And when I see that change, like you see right here, then I start to see that the declining issues are starting to weaken. The advancing issues are starting to strengthen. That's when I can start reversing my positions and start looking for longs that would be held. And in this case, any long position would be a great input into that market for the whole rest of the day. And that's confirmed with the KISS. Likewise, this was yesterday's, this is today. So right now, I've got a big strong push down, which means I'm only looking short until I start to see this change. Make sense? So these are confirmation tools. These are tools that help us to see and filter out trades and gives us overall direction. They're not going to tell you to buy now or to sell now. They're going to tell you if I'm going to take a trade based upon my chart, these are going to help filter the trade out. So I'm not going to take a long if I can see that the trend, all the trend of the markets are trending with weakness. And I see the overall market sentiment is to the downside. I'm not going to take long trades. And if I do take a long trade, I'm adding risk. And I always want to make sure I'm getting minimal risk and highest probability for my return. So anytime I add risk to my trade, then it's going to be going against me. So I always want to maximize my reward potential and minimize my risk. These tools are excellent in helping me to do that. Okay. And I think that about does it. It doesn't really remark it here. I've got a cryptocurrency setup where I'm looking at all of the different cryptocurrencies on my Fat Boy. It shows me relative strength or weakness on a longer term setting. This is a really great tool to be able to see that. You can see the longer term trends are still extremely weak. So um, it's a nice tool to help analyze and identify that for those of you who are knee deep into cryptos. Okay, so we've gone from longer term time frames to medium swing time frames to shorter term time frames to scalping. We've looked at stocks, we've looked at forex pairs, and we've looked at cryptos and equities. So and futures. Did I say futures? So we've identified that Hawkeye is versatile and that it doesn't care what market you trade or what time frame that you trade. The tool is set up so that you can set your charts up just exactly the way you want to trade and what your trading plan calls for. So we don't pigeonhole you into anything. We allow you the freedom and flexibility to set it up just the way that you need it. So are there any final questions on the TradingView platform before I close down for the day? Yes, I've heard of a Laguerre oscillator. Mhm. It might be one of the indicators available here. So let me see. Nope, I don't see it there. There. Here's some Laguerre-based strategies. Some other ones that are here that other people have posted. So yes, there are some available here on that. Hawkeye does not offer any Laguerre-based indicators though. Okay, let me pull up Apple then for you. All right, here's a daily, weekly, and monthly setup, longer term setup of Apple. Apple's rallied quite well last couple of months. See the big price dump here? The price came down, and you can see that that price bar, that gap, big gap down, okay, was from the previous earnings and the guidance that they had given. Even though their earnings are good, their guidance that they post out was bad, and they're putting that news out. But that gap down quickly followed back up because even though they have declining iPhone sales, their iPad sales and other services that they're starting to build are starting to really pay off. And so they're starting to gain revenue back from uh, their Lionhouse iPhone sales. So Hawkeye identified this right at this point as a re-entry, that the weakness that we saw coming into that point had finalized, and that we started to see a directional shift. And at this point, we got confirmation to re-enter that trend and to get back along on that. And that's been about at least 10% move on that since identifying that re-entry on the trade. Okay, still longer term, you're still looking at longer term weakness, which was identified about, what is that, 2 months ahead of time that Hawkeye was identifying this peak and reversal. And even on the monthly chart, you could see monthly identified that that price was going to go down 1, 2, 3 months ahead of time. So Hawkeye's volume tool is impeccable in identifying these weaknesses and the intent of institutional traders to try to reverse the markets on these things, to try to get retail traders to buy into these highs so that they can get better prices when they start to drag that tool down. George, the gearbox and gear changer, do these tools reset automatically every day? Yes, they do. It recalculates and changes for you every single day. All you have to do is just apply the new numbers to your charts for that day, and you're good for the rest of the day. The gearbox and gear changer are not available on TradingView because there are no tick charts available for TradingView. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording at this point.